It's now 8:15 and I'm going to call this meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Their issue is going to be speed to market so they can accelerate it pass through. The publics have a different perspective. You know, they always want to get the best deal for their individual customers. And if I'm big enough and I can move the market a little bit and get a little better deal, then I don't want an organized market. I want the ability to do this idea.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of we don't have that. We
Right.
don't have the staff. We don't have the size.
Right.
So for us, I think an organized market would be a much, much better choice. It's the equivalent of having an even-handed Bonneville at a larger scale.
So this group that you're a part of, is with the Western Power Pool.
Yes.
And so we've talked about this at Energy Northwest a few times, and
Energy Northwest is on this as well.
okay. I felt a little, we heard from a gentleman from BPA about this. I'm not remembering his name, but I felt a little disappointed in the sort of lack of leadership role that BPA was playing in terms of this conversation. They, at least 2 months ago or so, they didn't really want to get involved. Is that still the case? Are they trying to sort of stay neutral on this? Or I guess I'm really having a hard time sort of understanding who the players on the chessboard are and kind of what our goal is being involved. Like what's the end game for us in terms of how does this benefit our ratepayers, our community? And then yeah, I mean, who's really going to be making this? Because we've got WPUDA, we've got BPA, we've got Energy Northwest. Like what's
PPC.
where do we see this
Yeah.
playing out over the next year here?
So I guess you've just asked a whole bunch of questions in there. Let me back up and try and characterize BPA's position in all this. They don't really have a lot of generation. In fact, I'm not sure BPA has any generation. They contracted either through the Corps of Engineers or third parties like Chelan. What they are is a transmission owner. And they're in a sense a regional transmission operator, an RTO. And if the SPP market, SPP RTO is created west-wide, then what would happen is Bonneville would give up all operating, other than emergency operating, responsibility for their entire transmission system, as would all other transmission owners. So all of the transmission owners would essentially roll the management of their transmission to the regional transmission organization, the RTO. And so that has operational consequences, but it also has capital consequences because the RTO, the big RTO, could then tell the smaller transmission owners inside their organization, no, you have to build this capital project. You have to reconductor this line. You have to build a substation over here. You have to acquire this right of way and do this regional project. And no transmission owner likes to be told what to do inside their own transmission system. And I think that a governmental agency would especially be sensitive to that. So I think they're kind of pushing back. And that's one reason why TVA, for instance, is not in an RTO.
So if we went that with the SPP, South, then would we then form like a Pacific Northwest RTO in addition to being part of that market? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's two things. It's an ISO and an RTO.
Okay,
So the market part is the ISO.
right.
The
And then
transmission operator owner part is the RTO.
Okay, which we're essentially, BPA is essentially the RTO. for
There
the
are
publics
RTO, yeah.
right now, and you're saying that would shift completely away then from BPA doing, if we went that path. we
No,
would end up with,
We'd still look to BPA.
okay,
So for us, there'd be no change in how that would look.
okay,
And in fact, if we want to do anything on our system right now, we have to go in and post it in Oasis. And now, any work that we're doing to clear our 115 line, because that's part of the bulk system, then that wouldn't change. We'd still go into Oasis, post the work and all that. It would just be SPP would approve it. and tell Bonneville and Puget, yep, this is okay, because we're actually connected to Puget's RTO and Bonneville's RTO on our system. And it would simplify things in that regard. I mean, there's an enormous detail on this.
I feel like I need a diagram or
Mhm.
like a, I don't know, energy markets for dummies, kind of.
Yeah, I will see what I can find. The problem is I've had to learn this piecemeal over the last 20 years.
Oh, so it's not something I can just learn in a sitting.
It's it's possible.
I'm gonna Google right now. 'cause I need something too.
I think it's fair to say that I think, part of the reason that Nicholas gave a presentation at the last energy committee meeting on this subject and why, Wapud is, going to be discussing it again in April is because of this, the need for, an important decision. But, and wanting to provide the training and education to support that important decision. Wapud meetings are not typically, recorded.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if it's going to be necessary for to put it in some kind of a tutorial format that because it is an important decision. And maybe you don't have to do this on your own. Maybe the group of general managers can,
I've already asked Wapuda to help me on that, yeah.
you know, you guys can make a module that will
Yeah.
inform this decision.
Yeah, and then, at the end of the day, it may be that Wapuda's stance on the whole thing is different than Whatcom's stance, and that's okay. And I can represent both.
Yeah,
And-
for sure, it's possible.
I guess the good news is that this team that I'm on, they're in that early forming. They've only had one meeting. The second one is next week. And I don't imagine that we're going to get any kind of decision, from each individual group until later this year. So it's not something I need from you guys tomorrow, but I wanted to make sure that you guys knew it was out there. I will forward you the minutes and the other information related to the group so that you can see what it's all about. And you'll also see how early it is. And start thinking about it.
One of the things that's been driving for me, my thinking on this is understanding the how we complement the different California versus Southwest. So one thing that would be helpful for me would be to confirm the conjecture that I have, and that is that the Southwest and California are summer peaking as far as electricity demand. And also produce their peak energy in the summer because of solar. And the Northwest is winter peaking. And I'm curious whether the data actually supports that. And how much is there a difference between California versus the Southwest as far as that goes? And is there a natural complement to our demand scenario? And if we can model if we can model what the economics would be if we were to reproduce, we have data now for January. We know what happened that winter from January 12th to 18th. What would happen if we would have been in a Southwest power pool for the January 12th to January 18th period? So, how would they have complemented us and maybe could we have come out significantly ahead as a region? So,
Well, I mean, the quick answer to that is that the amount of money that California extracted from the transfers wouldn't have happened. So the power would have been 115 million. I think you said the number was 118 million, something like that. It would have been a little bit cheaper. And by that sounds like a whole lot of money, but you're probably talking about a market that was clearing a couple $2 billion an hour. So over the course of 3 or 4 days, $100 million actually doesn't amount to all that much, but it's savings. So that's the short answer. The long answer is if that were to happen 20 years from now, and you have any kind of an RTO, you've got a much better chance of having the infrastructure to deal with it and actually make transfers and not have blackouts and If you don't have an RTO, you're probably not going to have as much infrastructure be built.
No, that's a really good question. This point, and I want to pin that down. Is it fair to say that we can say with some confidence that the transmission infrastructure that I don't think anybody's questioning that we need transmission infrastructure. Even now, the environmental groups are saying we need transmission.
Yeah, just not here.
Yeah.
Build it somewhere else.
So is it fair to say that joining an organized market for sure will positively benefit the construction of transmission infrastructure? Do we know that? Can we say that with a high degree of confidence?
So the answer is yes. We can with a very high degree of confidence. And you need to look at the organized markets back east that have been organized since the 1950s, especially MISO. And they get a lot more transmission built than other areas. Even with that, they are way behind. So it's better, but still not great.
Okay.
No matter what, when you propose a transmission line, it's going to go through a couple 100 miles of counties and farms and cities. And every one of them is going to have a group of NIMBYs that stands up and says, don't put it here. And there are a ton of ways for them to intervene all along the process. And even in organized markets, it happens. The organized markets, the advantage they have is they elevate it to federal court fairly quickly. And they say, you need to sit on this group of NIMBYs because here's the studies, and it's going to save $500 million over 5 years to build this line and be able to transfer power. And it'll allow us to move wind from North Dakota where it's generated to New Orleans where it's needed. And that's the north to south on MISO, for instance. And you'll have the same kind of phenomenon happening in the West where you've got solar when you need it and wind when you need it. And you got to move it 2,000 miles to where the load is. You've got to have that kind of infrastructure. And today we're just about maxed out. Infrastructure in the West is meant to move power in and out of California. It's just how it's been designed.
I think somebody needs to produce a chart, on pluses and minuses of markets plus and SPP.
Yeah, and I can
mean-
do that today on market versus no market.
Mhm.
Until we get a lot of the details on what
Cal ISO
SPP
versus-
and Cal ISO is doing, it's going to be hard to generate that. Because it'll be built largely on speculation and past behavior of the organizations, not agreements that I can put in front of people.
So we're gonna have to keep moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry
forward.
about that.
Yeah. no,
This
that's
was
okay.
supposed to be a
That's great.
short,
Yeah.
not just one item, less than 10 minutes.
No, that's great. I hope that we hear more about it.
I had Googled energy markets for dummies. Because I would be interested, as always, trying to, so I sent you some links. There's some PowerPoints that
Oh,
give
good.
some overviews.
Great.
I'm gonna watch.
Thank you.
Can I just make a quick process comment? In the future, I feel like getting an email heads up with like a little bit of the background on this would be nice, just because it's such a complex topic. And I would just be interested to, if you send any follow-up emails, like how much time you think you're gonna be dedicating to this over the next year. Just so that
Okay.
we can have a later conversation too about, how it aligns with our strategic plan and
Yeah.
things like that.
Before I bombed you with an email and
Yeah.
a bunch of links, I wanted to have a verbal, I actually reversed that intentionally
Okay.
and did not send a bunch of stuff up front. Because very likely you would have read it and gone, what? And what's the context of this? That's why I wanted to have the discussion.
Okay, all right, thanks.
By the Commissioner Grant, one of the things that you said, I think you're asking who is leading the initiatives on this, and I haven't been Energy North's comparing what I've heard at Wapuda and PPC. I would say they've been the most informative, opinionated in cases, commentary at PPC on this subject. And last I checked, they were still holding up a preference to Markets Plus in that community
They are.
to Cal ISO.
That's what I've been hearing too in conversations about this.
But I mean, I'm just gonna be honest, I wanna know how much that's manufacturing consent and how, I wanna
Yeah.
dig deeper.
And see the data, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's smart.
I'll move on to broadband.
Oh, are you finished with your report?
That was it.
Okay,
Just
great.
the one item,
All right.
supposedly less than 10 minutes.
Moving on to old business, broadband.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, good morning, commissioners, John, Chris. So the hot topic today for broadband are project areas. So I just want to unpack that for a minute. If we back up until this point, entities would apply for grants under CURB, Community Economic Revitalization Board, Public Works Board, Washington State Broadband Office. And what we would do is we would design our own project areas, trying to hit as many unserved locations inside of our own defined project areas. So what's happening now is the Washington State Broadband Office, through the BEAD program, will issue a NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity, later this year. And what they will do is they will have a predetermined list of project areas that we will apply to serve all of the unserved address points within each of those project areas. So we don't get to design or build our own project areas. The state will produce those. There was a draft of those in the volume 2 initial proposal. There was a link in there where you could follow the link and you could go to Whatcom County and download all of the draft project areas. And so what we've done is we've done that. And what we found is there's 10 project areas in Whatcom County that the state has defined. And each of those project areas, the state has said, we want to get roughly 1,000 unserved locations in each of those project areas. So what we've done from there is we've taken those and we've worked with the Washington State Association of Counties has hired a consultant who has gone through these project areas, and they've done some high-level cost analysis. And for our community, if we looked at serving all of the unserved addresses in Whatcom County within the predefined project areas, we'd be at a roughly $170 million if we did all fiber. If we did a hybrid, like a fiber to wireless, we're down to about 70 million. That's just for Whatcom County. And the state only has 1.23 billion, which sounds like a lot, but when you start multiplying that 70 or 170 by 39 counties, all of a sudden we're a little short. Really quickly, we're really short. So what we're doing now is we've decided to latch on to the BEAD teaming memorandum of understanding, which we went through at a previous meeting, and that's with NOAANet. So what I want to do is I want to pause for a minute and ask if there's any questions on the project areas. And then I'll dive into kind of the next steps of what we're doing about the BEAD and the upcoming Notice of Funding Opportunity.
Any questions on project areas?
Okay. So from there, what we've done is, with your approval, we've decided to sign on to this memorandum of understanding. So what I want to do is just read through all the participants that have also signed on here. Public Utility District of Mason County, PUD of Kitsap, the Tri-County Economic Development District, Ponderay PUD, Grace Harbor PUD, Pacific County PUD, Northwest Gigapop, Lewis County PUD, us, and Okanagan County PUD. So those are all the folks who have signed on to this BEAD teaming memorandum of understanding, and they're planning to have their kickoff meeting next week. So I feel like we're in good company with this group. A lot of heavy hitters in the broadband world.
I'm surprised who's, I thought would be present, who's not present. Jefferson is not on that list.
Well, but they've got their own fiber team. And I talked to them and they said a couple things. One, they've had a lot of prior success with grant funding. And two, they don't need to be on this because they feel they've got everybody they need to get it done. So.
Yeah, and they already had a chunk pre-BEAD.
Mhm.
They have a lot of grant money right
They have a
now.
lot.
Yeah. And Kitsap, you didn't list Kitsap.
No, they were
on
on
there.
there.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, which was a bit of a surprise to me. I think that was Angela, supporting the thing. The other big one is Lewis County. They got $30 million on the last round and they're in on this. So they've got a huge team and they're looking for more help. So that's pretty significant, I think.
Mhm.
You don't hear anything from Chelan, Asotin, Grant, Benton. I don't know. Douglas. I don't know why. Either they've got a team or they're not going to go after it, or that's their call.
So do we need to take action today or no? Okay.
No,
Okay.
just giving you a kind of a play-by-play of
Okay.
events.
Okay.
And so now, closer to home, what we're doing now with the Port of Bellingham is we're taking these draft project areas, which we won't have the final project areas until July. And then what we know from the timelines that have been shared with the state broadband office is that then supposedly Q3, Q4, the notice of funding opportunity will drop. And so the reason why we're starting this work now and using the draft project areas is because we don't think the project areas will change that much over the course of the next couple of months or a few months prior to the BEAD NOFO. They'll change a little bit, but we don't think there'll be like a mass, change in what the project areas are from draft to what we get finalized. So we want to be prepared, and we don't want to have the notice of funding drop and then we'll have 60 days to submit an application. So we're starting now. And what we're doing with the Port of Bellingham is we're taking those 10 project areas, taking the high level costs that I just spoke to. And what we're doing now is we're going to finalize who's going to take what project areas of the 10. And so we're going to go to the steering committee this next week and kind of decide that. So Gina and I have met and we've made a preliminary kind of action of what we would take, PUD report. And we're going to go through the steering committee and get approval there. And then we'll bring that back to to the commission here. And I'll maybe do a screen share and show you, here's where the port wants to take, and here's where the PUD project areas might take, if that's acceptable to all of you. So that's the update on BEAD and what we can expect moving forward. Unless I missed anything, I'll pause for Chris now. Okay.
If you're gonna guess, based on just, prior, rounds of BEAD, how much do you think a county like Whatcom County could get from BEAD? If it's 1 billion, I can't imagine we'd get more than 50 million.
1.23 billion.
Yeah, I can't imagine we'd get more than 50 million is what I'm trying to say. So-
This is not considered a rural county. And I think that our cost per pass is going to be higher than many others. So that might be very much on the high end for an expectation. But I don't know. And the other thing is, we looked at some of the other submissions last time through, and Andrew did better. So, there's a quality issue, even though if they had an Andrew, they might be able to argue a case better. I think, I like our argument. And so I really don't know how this is going to turn out.
Is it realistic to say, though, that the most money we'll get will be less than what we need to serve all of our project areas?
Yes, I would phrase that differently. I'd say the odds of us getting money to cover everything is very, very low.
Okay. So what will happen after that?
Well, remember the Inflation Reduction Act that funds this, the stated goal was to get internet to every residence in America. And it's clear there's probably about a third of the money needed to get it to every residence in Washington. And we got a disproportionate share of the money compared to other states. So in a large disproportion, not a small disproportion. And so I think that at the end, it's going to be up to the states to come up with additional money to fund subsidizing the asset extension out to high cost to serve customers. I think that's, I don't, unless there's another big pot of federal money that's created, I'm just not sure that there's another way to do this. Market forces won't get you.
No, nobody asked me, but what the right way to spend this money for IRA would have been for states and communities to develop public-private partnerships for mid-mile infrastructure and get that in place. So each county had a solid mid-mile loop or two. And then both the private sector and the public sector could collaborate to do last mile, but that's not what we did.
Well, it was driven by the NTIA at the federal level. And so they told us what we were going to do, how we were going to structure it, and how much money we were going to get. So there wasn't an opportunity for communities to get together and build this thing from the bottom up.
No, there wasn't.
That was not an option.
I know, I wish there was, but I'm wishing.
I'm just not sure that would have taken forever and maybe produced a bunch of happy feeling committees that don't get anything done.
That's true too. Yeah.
NTIA said, we need to spend this money, make the investment, boom, here's how we're gonna do it, and at least they're getting something done.
True.
Well, and it seems like what I saw from the state down to the Whatcom County Council is that during the pandemic, everybody became laser focused on last mile too. Like, how do we actually get the internet to their home right now? And even though we need the middle mile to get to the last mile.
Yep.
The final mile was what made people's lives better in that moment, so. Yeah. Hindsight.
So also on broadband, Andrew, could you just give us a quick update on where we are with Point Roberts?
Sure. Right before that, though, if I may, we did send out a doodle poll for a broadband workshop for May. So I'll send the link out again later today. If you didn't see it already, which is a bunch of different times. I think we did 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. blocks. For the second and fourth week, I believe, of May.
I don't mind if you put me on the spot. Did I respond?
I think one commissioner has responded.
That
Okay.
would be me.
Yes. I didn't want to say it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do so. I'll find it and do so.
And then just real
And
briefly.
if you need more dates, if we can't get all three of you, we'll propose more later on. We just have to keep moving.
I'll
it
just
out.
say now, Fridays are better for me.
And just to wrap up, the Point Roberts project is in design engineering, as we've talked about, and they're chugging right along. So no new update, but they're doing a lot of work and they're moving forward. So, and I'm really happy with how they communicate, and they've been very timely, and so I think they've been a good partner so far. And then last thing, thanks to John and Chris, our county franchise agreement was approved. No public comments, and it was approved unanimously. So that's my
Thank you.
report. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, moving on to adjudication.
Certainly, I think the key thing is the two bills have been passed and signed by the governor, the additional judge, and also the change to the water right commission statute have worked through. Pleased about that. We continue to meet on the bar committee and work through issues there. It'll be, I think the next 6 months will be tumultuous from a water attorney's perspective in the courts, in that ecology files by the end of April as anticipated. The courts are not ready for that filing and the mass mailing, and their electronic filing system is not in place. So how and when litigation will start is a question, and I think the disconnect of timing creates great opportunity for mischief by voters. And that opportunities litigate issues, create issues that will go on appeal, that'll have the effect sometimes intended possibly in delaying the substance of adjudication.
So we have no idea at this point when they'll file.
Everything we hear from ecology has been from saying April, which could be April 30th, to the spring. I think they're still trying to be very committed to what their commitments were. The court will accept the petition. The clerks will accept the petition. They don't have their electronic filing system with over 10,000 parties, over 30,000 cases or claims within the adjudication. How that is really going to be administered, how notice is going to be distributed, how parties can participate is uncertain because the systems aren't in place on the court administration side. So there'll be a lot of the early issues in Aquavella were around service and notice. And so if the party doesn't have notice and they're starting to make substantive determinations, you can stay that and appeal. So that's why I say ecology may file. There's a time frame for the court to issue the ordinance of summons. I think that's still, there's a lot of gaps in the system and the process once ecology files. So that's why I say field of play will be wide open, possibly for mischief making.
Any reflections on our coffee get together?
It was interesting, a very bright man, James Davenport, who acted with water law in the West. My reflection is that, kind of confirm the direction we're going, where the PUD direction's going, that it's that the litigation in this case is a big hairy for all. I mean.
That a technical term, John?
But it is just gonna be, it's complex, it's gonna be a lot of moving parts, it's gonna be contentious. That to have solutions, you're gonna have to upend a lot of the underlying structures of Washington water law and with some special legislation to distribute water, have access to water for people without rights, how that's administered. And we're not close to being there culturally, politically, legally, or financially, or technically.
Well, I'd like to make a comment, see what you think of it. On our.
So you asked my question where I think, so.
Yeah, so James Davenport, like all of us, it recognizes that it's a very complex situation that we're going to face. And he, like all of us, are wondering how prior appropriation and reasonableness will have relative interplay. So based purely on prior appropriation, whoever, has a senior water right exclusively, that's the only thing that matters. And that you make the list of who's senior, who's less senior, and all the water gets allocated. James Davenport's wondering, like many people, where does reasonableness come into play? And he has his own ideas of how to have reasonableness have influence on the process. But it may be a little premature to figure out how that happens. And so that's kind of how I'd like to summarize is that how, when there's no water left, then what do you do?
Well, this underscores what I've conveyed, and I think the commission's concurred that there is a crisis of water that, given the disparate issues and disparate risks that every party in the basin has, someone needs to drive these parties together. There needs to be some process that gets people to the table. Thousands of people can't be at the table, and we're not gonna have a negotiation kingdom, right? So there has to be a, pardon?
We're certainly not.
Certainly not. It's a matter of so we have to find a way to get people to a table, and it has to be someone who can be respected and drive through cultural, political, technical, legal, financial issues to get there. And it's just, the solution is visible, but it's so complex, it's hard to get there given the disparate parties and issues. So we have to find a way to get there. And I think there's subtly and slowly working.
And I think that, the model, unfortunately or fortunately, was Acapella. That it took 40 years, and it was only after the claims had been filed and all kinds of initial posturing gone on for 25 years that the parties got together and, negotiated separately, and a bunch of small, reasonable outcomes came out of it that added up to ultimately all the settlements.
And I think that
We're trying to accelerate that.
And I think by and large, a number of significant players, large ag users, I think the tribes, PUD, the municipals, all recognize that we don't have the 40 years, and there's a value to coming to some solutions, but it's finding ways through that. And I think we're not going to get there till after we get the adjudication filed and maybe some of these initial skirmishes sorted out.
On a related, I'll just bring it up now. I attended the Ag Water Board meeting. And I was very heartened to see that it appears to me, based on that meeting, that the Ag Water Board seems to be trying quite hard to develop communication and education for small private, I mean, from their perspective, small water users. How small they're going to go remains to be seen, but they're trying to create their funding, they're creating support for educating small farms. Again, how small they go, I don't know. But certainly in areas that are covered by watershed improvement district, they're making a serious effort to create information resources. And it seems like there's some potential duplication of effort between the county natural resources. Gary Stoica spoke and is much further behind, but also intends to do something similar. The PUD doesn't have an explicit or in this discussion, but I just thought it's a personal interest of mine to see that county residents the amount of confusion is minimized because the less confusion there is, the less fur in the fur ball. So I just wanted to share that.
As a reminder, once the adjudication has been filed by ecology, funds are made available for the county to begin doing a bunch of outreach type work. And that's one of the reasons why Gary is kind of hamstrung right now. He doesn't have money, he doesn't have staff, he doesn't have, in this, when that money is freed up, and I can't recall, was it 400,000 in 2 different years?
Something about that. About
So-
400, 450.
Yeah, it's pretty significant. So that'll, and of course, then we got the issue of it's dropping in late in this fiscal year. Will we have the ability to roll it? Anyway, we'll get through some of that, but yeah, so there's the county is going to be in this. They're going to be doing it at a much higher level than they are today once they get some funding. And that there's an awful lot of people who are doing outreach on this, including Dave Olson and others. Rebecca's been to a number of meetings that have been held where this has been the topic. And forget the title of the last one, but they had the 3 consultants come in once again and do the presentation on, here's what you need to do to file a claim. And
Good.
yeah, so and that message has got to get out there 100 times.
100 times, yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
No legislation update, or that was it?
That
was
one,
part
from
of
a
it.
legislative
Okay.
side, the 2 bills came through. There
Yep.
may be other things people want to update on with those 2 bills. And we're signed by the government.
Does it make sense, Chair, to strike that from the recurring agenda?
I think so, yeah.
Until we're back in session.
Yep.
Yeah, there was something I wanted to make sure that the 2 of you, Christine and I, know full well what's going on with the geothermal, but I want to make sure you guys knew. So
Okay.
there's the funding bill for the test wells was approved, and it's contingent on the
Receiving.
CETA.
Cap and trade.
Yeah, the CCA was not repealed. So if the CCA is repealed, the funding will be there. We'll just have to see how that sorts out in November. And then the legislative, the budgetary amendment, the proviso that allows for the initial pre-feasibility study was passed and signed by the governor. So I think we're in good shape there.
Yeah, 6039 gets signed on Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I'm gonna talk to you about, because I don't think I can go to the bill signing, but.
What day is it?
It's Thursday afternoon.
This Thursday.
Yeah, they just told me about it.
Okay. Yeah, I know. And they give
Okay.
you like 72 hours notice
Mhm,
max. So,
mhm.
okay.
Anyways, it's getting signed by the governor. So that's great. The only other thing I was gonna say on geothermal was whether we've looked into the Washington Geologic Survey grants. I talked to someone in DNR about this, and they said that it might be worth syncing up with folks from the Washington Geologic Survey. I think, they were the ones that did those test wells back in 2019. Because I think they might have some additional pots of funding. And I just think working with them.
They do.
They should know about this work.
They do.
Okay,
And so the issue with those guys was that the amount of money that was available for studies was tiny.
okay.
So the most you could get on a grant wouldn't cover much.
Mhm.
And so it's one of those things where if we could get it all through the proviso process, we don't need to hit their grant money for that.
Mhm.
They have grant money available for the actual exploration. We're just not there yet.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
we know about those pots, whether they exist, 2-3 years from now, that we don't know. If we need them, because the bill is going to be signed on Thursday, you may obviate the need for that and you create the funding just to do the test drills.
Mhm.
So yes, we're very familiar with that, dug into it a couple times. Andrew's been around a couple times on that issue, as I recall.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, so those people are great and they were, with both hands, here's what we've got. And so it was, that was wonderful. The other thing, and this is a request of you, Commissioner Grant, could you get a hold of Lisa? Now that the proviso's gone through, we need to,
Mhm.
I mean,
She was on vacation. She just got home today. I
Okay.
think most people that were heavily involved in the legislative session took
I would
took a
imagine.
week off. But yeah, I was planning to sync up with her today and
Perfect.
have been working with Representative Rammel on a press release kind of about geothermal in
Oh, super.
general. Just because I think the community is gonna want to know what's going on, and Lisa, I think, will
Mhm.
be putting some finishing.
If Lisa's opinion is that we should go staff to staff at this point and
Mhm.
reach out directly to them, we can do that. I know
Yeah,
Pre-Quo real well.
I think that I'll talk to her, and I mean, yeah, I
Okay.
think that would make sense at this point.
Yeah, just
so-
want to get out.
Yeah, I
front,
do
yeah.
know she was on vacation, like many folks. So, yeah, I'll make sure that.
Yeah,
you
because we
guys get
really
it.
want, when the budget drops on July 1st.
Yeah.
We really want to put the RFP out on the street that day,
Right,
which means we have to be writing it soon.
right, okay,
So on
Just
the,
related to attorney for the NUCSAC asked me for a
Right.
copy of the notice of application.
For the nomination of
For the
lands.
nomination.
I'll mention that to Lisa too, so that
I
she
did
knows
forward
what's going on.
to-
Yeah. Oh, what?
I did send that nomination.
Yeah, I saw that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have a phone call with him too? No, okay.
And it sounded like he just wanted it for totality of record.
Or they're wanted to talk to his client about whatever's going on.
so we applied for geothermal funding under Department of Commerce, what's different? What's your thinking about that? Are we going to continue to pursue that, to supplement what's happening from the budget item? Or are we gonna just let that go?
I think that the amount of funds that's available in the proviso will cover the pre-feasibility study. So there's at this point no need. I think we've got enough from the state to cover that.
Okay,
And then what comes out of the pre-feasibility study and some other considerations would lead you to decide whether or not you need additional funding. There'll come a point where we're going to be talking to the DOE, not the Department of Energy at the federal level, not a state agency.
okay.
At our last meeting, we discussed drafting a resolution against the repeal of the CCA. And I think Brian said that he was going to talk to you about that. I don't know if it's premature to do something like that though, since like election season isn't really hot and heavy. You kind of want to hit it when people are interested.
And yeah, and we're fine doing that. The letter that we sent to Representative Rammel was signed by all four of us.
Yeah,
And I mean, that is, we oppose repealing the CCA. We think that the project that is in the bill that's being passed is good. And so it was,
and I like the letter, but I think that people, like, if we want to get this out to newspapers, they didn't pick it up. We send it out to the Cascadia.
Yep.
If we want to be able to sort of succinctly tell others how we feel, and I'm sure there's other organizations that'll probably be doing something similar.
yeah, and I don't know if we sent a copy of it over to Andrew Redding or not. The
I don't
Whatcom
think
County
that we did.
Democrats.
I don't think
Yeah,
that we did.
that was a miss on my part.
Yeah.
We can get that out to him this afternoon.
Yeah, because if nobody sees it, it's
Yeah,
useless.
but we did push it out to the press at the time,
Mhm.
and you know, that's pushing on a string. If they use it, they use it.
So what do you think, Jamie, we should refresh this issue in the late summer?
Yeah, I think it should probably be July, August, actually, when people start really caring about what's gonna be on the ballot.
I'd support that and basically it would be a refresh. Then we would send a board resolution as well as the prior letter to the local publications and they might pick it up then because it'll be out topic then.
Yeah, I
A
think,
topic.
I mean, I think that part of why the newspapers didn't pick it up yet is that it isn't, well, yeah, the election season is a long way away. But I think that we need to do a better job telling the story too, and, you know, like on the board of directors meeting for Wapuda, right, like the $25 million for the Energy Northwest SMR project, that's gonna vanish if the CCA is repealed, right?
Yep.
And so, I mean, that's what makes it meaningful to people, right? Is if we can start telling those stories. So it might also be good to work on some sort of a joint press release with some other members of the community, for example, or but yeah, like we need to, I think a resolution's good, but kind of teeing up the story too for what infrastructure won't get built, frankly.
So let me forward a message I got from Liz either Friday or yesterday. Liz in Wapuda, a reporter from Seattle had contacted her and said, gosh, you know, what kind of projects do you have going? And she went to me and many others and said, you know, hey, Chris, your geothermal effort, would you be happy to talk to a reporter about this? And I said, yes. There were 5 of those different issues. So it kind of is almost a pre-made laundry list for what you're getting at. Here's all the things that are targeted by the CCA. And the CCA repeal, these things would all die. And this one reporter was asking for just that. Liz put together the list and the contacts for each one of the PUDs. So I'll forward that to you. It'd be a nice place to start. Yeah, this is an evolving issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty concerned that with this being on the ballot, that it's going to be a fight with inflation, people feeling like their pocketbooks are being hit really hard.
It's going to be
There's-
an east-west issue.
It's gonna be an east-west issue. People think that there's a hidden gas tax. I mean, there's all of these reasons why. Yeah, it's gonna be hard. So we, you know, we really want geothermal and we need that money. We better fight hard.
Just to clarify though, the budget proviso that we got.
Is independent
not
of the
in-
CCA.
Right.
Independent,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
And it could very well be that, you know, we come back with a pre-feasibility study and it's, you know, here's what you need
Sure.
and it's all reasonable and all that. And we lose on the CCA side, then we go to the Department of Energy and appeal direct and say, look, we want a hot rocks project here. And will you help us get this off the ground? And they've had funding in the past. They may have it again. Oh, it's,
Okay.
you know, not the end of the world, but it certainly doesn't help if the CCA is repealed.
All right, if that's,
Kind of bled into geothermal a little bit.
yeah, yeah.
So just a real quick update on the actual project. There's no additional progress. So we don't, the nomination is being bounced back and forth between federal departments, and they'll give us some kind of a decision in their own time. And, you know, the latest they've said is that it's going to go from one department to another by the end of April. Whether that department then looks at it and says, okay, we're good to go, or whether it goes into a whole nother evaluation process, we don't know.
Okay. Moving on to new business. We have the approval, purchase of 480 HP Rockwell variable frequency drive motor.
Sure.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'm here to press approval for funding or for your approval for, so it's a 700 horsepower variable frequency drive, 480 volt. We're in plant 1. We have an existing one. It's about 25 years old. It's leaking fluid. We've had the Rockwell tech out and he said that it's really old and falling apart. We should probably get a new one. This would be actually being installed by our guys. our in-house crew. I believe it's about an 18-week timeline, which is incredibly fast for something of this size. One of the reasons that we feel that it is really important is it's not only trying to keep our equipment up and running, it's when we have a problem like this, the other plant is really struggling to maintain PSI and maintain flows to all the other customers. So that creates more wear on the other plant too in this specific case. But whenever we have a problem like this, there's always increased wear. So if we can when we have variable frequency drives, we can adjust flows much more easily as opposed to all of our fixed drives where it's either on or off. So this really helps maintain just a good flow. So I'm just here to request your approval.
Any questions?
My only question, I mean, it's a pricey piece of equipment
Mhm.
and I know the future of plant one and our plans is ever evolving
Mhm.
and but with a piece of equipment like this, we would continue using it in whatever new format plant one takes,
This is
right?
one of the few pieces of equipment you can actually translate into a new plant.
Okay,
It's salvageable, I guess would
Okay.
be the right way to put it.
great.
Yeah,
That's
a
my
lot,
only
a lot of
question.
what we're doing out there, maintaining baffles and, rebuilding concrete structures, and that's sunk cost.
Okay.
This is something that could be transferred.
That's positive.
Yes, it is. I'll entertain a motion.
Joel, did you have a question?
No,
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the VFD installation.
in purchase.
Oh, yeah, okay, for the purchase of the new 700 horsepower VFD.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to
Great.
the
Thank you, Commissioners.
operations report.
I'll be doing that as well.
Great.
So last week we made our first attempt on bringing our new substation online. And it was very challenging, to say the least. We tried it last week, 1 week ago on Tuesday. Patelco, our main general contractor, had to do a bunch of work in the old substation because, as you know, we're running from the new substation through the old because of all the voltages of our existing pumps and everything in our current plant. So we can't go straight from our new substation, which is the 4160 volt plant, directly into the old plant because the voltages don't work. So we still have to run through the old substation. And so this may not be necessarily completely accurate, but one of the ways I described it, we're trying to put a motor control of a 2023 Toyota on a 1965 Ford. Basically is how I described it, which may not be fully correct. But it's right now we are still running off of the old system because when we tried to turn on the new sub, there were troubles with basically there's a lot of relay logic in the new setup. There's not everything's run by software now. And so even though there are physical switches for turning power on and off, everything runs through software. And so there's a lot of settings in today's it's more safe, but running it through an old system is very challenging. And so on Tuesday of last week, all of our guys probably put in some guys probably put in 18-hour days. We had some people doing 16-hour days, and we lost plant one several times. And then we decided to run off the old system so that we got us through the night. We made some changes, made some software changes, made a couple more physical changes to the new substation on Wednesday, tried again on Thursday. We were thought we were running fine. We had 3 pumps running. The new frazzle compressor, we were running all these devices. And then we actually started ramping back down and we were down to 2 pumps and then the plant just shut off again. So we lost the plant again last Thursday, working with the industrial customer, keeping them informed, letting them know that we are having challenges, and they were very responsive and very helpful. And so right now we're back with our basically in an unchanged system, but we're working with the house manufacturer, which is Eaton, because there was some switches inside the building, the switchgear building, as well as our electrical engineer to work on the settings. So we're moving forward. The transformers are soaking, as it's called. The new transformers are running. There's power in them. That's fine, but we still have some more steps before we'll be able to fully turn the new substation online. So there's definitely been some challenges there. Again, our crew, they're always stepping up very well. But right now we are pushing water out of plant 1, which is obviously what we need.
That is good.
That's good. The thing is if we don't have the second plant, at some point, plant 2 just can't keep up. If there was any kind of upset in the refineries or any kind of additional load that was unplanned, we would not be able to maintain that. So right now, like I said, we're working through making some changes and we're going to try again. Actually, April 17th is our next scheduled date for making that effort to get us online. So that's just giving you a little update of the challenges that we're experiencing. But like I said, our crew is excellent, and so I think we'll get it figured out.
Kurt, I'm a little confused by the software piece. So you need software, so there's no like manual override? Like, if
There
you-
are, but when it's running correctly, it's all done by software.
Oh, interesting.
We have there's a company called Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories out of, I wouldn't necessarily say they're Spokane, but
They're out of Pullman.
Pullman. Okay, they're out of Pullman, and so these devices, they are basically the PLCs, the programmable logical controllers. They are running the system, but yeah, they control the hardware, which is going to shut things off. And so these software controls, they're more sensitive if they see a spike in the load, or if they see a change in the load that they're not expecting, it'll shut things off. And so the thing is when we turn on a non-VFD pump, there's a big surge of power. And so if the software isn't set up correctly to recognize that as a proper load, as opposed to an improper load, it'll shut things off. So that's where the bad analogy of trying to
Interesting.
make up older and newer products.
And then the flip side, when you take an existing load and you interrupt it, you can have a 2 to 3 times over voltage across the terminals. And again, if the software is not set up properly, it views, because these things look at microseconds, not milliseconds. So they look at the ramp rate on voltage, and it sees that, and it goes, before get something that's going to kill somebody, I'm going to cause the thing to open and interrupt. And so they look at these ramp rates, and so setting it is a bit of an art. But yeah, the Schweitzer relays, and you'll hear us say Schweitzer because we're becoming a Schweitzer shop, and that's a very good thing. That is the gold standard in the industry.
Yeah, and that's all I have for the report. Just I want to point out again how awesome
Chris,
that
next,
crew
in
is.
our next check-in, I'd like to nerd out with you on the electrical engineering stuff.
Okay, fair enough.
I do not. Thank
Fair
you.
enough.
I'm respecting my colleagues here.
Great, thank you, commissioners.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I just ask, this is more directed at Chris, but when Brian was stepping in for you at the last meeting, we talked a little bit about the getting things done book and like sort of thinking about plant 1 and using some of those ideas as we think about plant 1, including like modularity in terms of like one big thing. And I mean, I think sound like we have a great team working on this issue, but we're working with very old infrastructure. So I guess I'm just wondering kind of,
Yeah,
could
this
we get
one-
a memo soon on some of the plan, or what's I still don't feel like I know what the sort of
So
plan
we're
is.
We're getting
Okay.
ready to give that to
Okay.
you. We're not that close yet, though.
Okay.
Part of it is, what are our customers going to want to fund?
Right.
So that's a big part of it. But to your other kind of unstated question, this could have been a case study in that book.
Yeah.
And fair enough. And part of the issue was the planning that was done up front was probably sufficient if they had immediately moved and done the project. But it stumbled into COVID. And then at the end of COVID, they ended up replanning it, and that planning was insufficient. And so this was it wasn't well planned, and it just it should have been a 6 to 9 month project, and here we are in the 5th or 6th year. And it's just been replaned, the scope has changed so many times. This is exactly what happens.
Okay.
And so we're just trying to close this thing off now and stop the bleeding. And, like Kurt was saying, our guys have been unbelievably phenomenal on this. It's just, they've been all over it.
Well, and
Yeah.
yeah, this is huge thanks to the operations team. And hopefully, yeah, we don't need to have 18-hour days. We can
No.
have the machines doing the work.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Gil.
So you'll update us next month, hopefully,
Yes.
yeah.
Hopefully we'll have excellent news.
Okay, moving on to commissioner reports. Who wants to start? Anybody bubbling up? That I want to share their report?
I don't have that much. We're having a conversation with the BPA transmission group, or some folks from BPA that work on transmission, and I was gonna actually invite Lisa McShane. Or, because I just think that having somebody from the Nooksack side sort of just get the beginnings of kind of the flavor for what transmission would take for this project would be useful. That's it for me for what's coming up as far as I know. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to make it to the bill signing on Thursday.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I know I've got, my day is full, but I may just be able to either move stuff or delegate, but we'll see.
Okay.
For me, there's a joint meeting of the county council and the city council on water. On Thursday morning at 9 a.m. The joint water committee.
I think there's just like Whatcom program, or is it something different?
Yeah, well, they talk about Lake Whatcom as a centerpiece, yeah.
Big like Whatcom meeting is tomorrow night.
Right.
Join with the Lake Whatcom Water District.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll attend. If I can make it, I'll try to attend. And then of course, PPC early April. That's one thing that's kind of on my list of things I'd like to attend. PPC I'll attend by Zoom. And
Are all three of you going down to Skamania?
No.
Oh, okay. Are you
I'm
going as
going.
well? Okay.
Thursday is the Waputa Water Committee meeting. Like they're
Yes.
they're
Oh,
like all day
that's right,
meeting.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
that what you were?
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, that's
thinking?
right.
Yeah.
Maybe I had water committee down.
Yeah, so I'll be attending the
You
first
would-
half
good,
of
okay,
that,
okay,
9
good.
to noon or whatever on
Then I won't cover that.
online.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'll be doing. Is attending the water committee meeting.
Okay.
Is there, I know that we received by email from Anne, other people's commissioner, like, expense reports.
Mhm.
Were we supposed, or are we just going to review
It's
those?
an FYI.
Just an FYI,
Yeah,
okay.
you guys requested that.
Okay,
And
I noticed a difference and I don't know if it matters. But so when you turn in your hours on the 16th, they're for the month of February. So you
Mhm.
turn in the month of February is in March. And we both do sort of like the 17th through the 17th, the 16th.
Oh, I can do that.
I
I can
don't-
start doing that.
I don't know if it matters, but it was just one of those things that
I'd
I
be glad to do
noticed.
that.
Okay.
I mean,
Just so we're
it
all
would
on the
make us a
same
little more
page.
current
Yeah.
in terms of the books. I'm not sure that it, in terms of closing out the month or the
Yeah,
year, I
yeah,
don't think
yeah,
it
but
matters.
just
I
to-
can absolutely do that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Then we'll all be doing it the same way. And I like that.
Consistency is good.
Yeah, we're talking a lot
I
about.
like to be different too.
I
You
know, I
that.
know, you're unique. You
Maybe I'll
are.
do like this. Maybe just a little bit, just a little bit. I'll do it like to the 50, not the 60, just so I can have my own little.
Switching it up.
60
Okay.
to 50.
Well, when we were talking about expense reports and I've been looking at some of the policies that we have that are just, they're so outdated. Like when it comes to per diem expenses for like traveling, it hasn't been updated since I think 2001. And it needs to be, like the Office of Financial Management puts out a new one every year, so I don't know why we're not updating that more frequently. And there's some other just really outdated policies that we have in terms of like recognizing employee service and, do we have any plans to do that? Because I would like to see
We're
an
kind of, we're
update.
engaged in a slow scrub of the policies. I think we just did tuition, we just did pandemic, we're going through a larger policy, so we're kind of slowly marching our way through.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Line dance.
Line
We'll add a line dance.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of these things are over 20 years old, so it's,
I want to draft that one.
yeah.
Rooster training.
We recognize the need to get through those, scheme of things. There's been different levels.
I would make a suggestion on these like traveling expenses and things. So why don't we follow the guidelines of the Office of Financial Management? I mean, like I said, they put it out yearly. It doesn't make sense for us to come up with our own
Okay.
long convoluted.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, great, thanks. And that's it.
In many of these cases, we are trying to streamline them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not just wholesale accepting something from somebody else. It's
Sure.
just as that we comply with current guidelines or current regulations.
Can I just add something to that? Is that, I mean, maybe there, I don't know, is there like an employee internet that you all have?
So our employee policies are available online for behind the firewall.
Okay,
That's what you're asking.
whenever I try to look at it, I have to like go through my email and find something John sent me 6 months ago. So there's no way I can log in and just grab the handbook.
Yeah, actually, the
I
handbook
asked
is
them.
off on the S drives.
Right,
Yeah.
and physically,
Yeah.
then it's outdated, you know what I mean? And just-
Yeah.
From that, we can get you anything from the network you want.
We
if
just
you
have to
wanted-
email you.
That'd probably be best. I mean, we could start giving you access, but it starts to get
The firewall and all that. type of
real
thing.
finicky. It's okay, I mean, we could do it if that's what you decide
Mm-hmm.
to do. But if there's specific documents you want, we certainly could gather them up and give them to you in one form or another.
But it does exist behind the firewall, and you just go to the S drive and pull it down. So the question is, from an employee's point of view, yes, they can get at all this stuff.
Okay, okay. It's just a little disorganized for commissioners.
It is,
feels like.
it is, yeah. A little tedious. Okay, well, if that's it for commissioner reports, we'll move to public comment. Rick, nothing from you? I guess we'll look and see if there's anyone online who has a comment. Doesn't look like anyone online. Okay, so now we are going to adjourn to executive session for review of a public employee and potential litigation.
Right, and we are going to estimate that we'll be finished at 10:05.
Okay, estimated 10:05 finish.
You take it too late, right?
We can take it to minutes. Okay, thank you. There we are.
Was waking up.
It's now 10:20 and we've returned from executive session. No action was taken and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. John.